Hello, everyone, and welcome. Yesterday, David and I, our guest speaker, held a webinar, Boost Your Google Search Ranking and Drive More Traffic to Your Website. So we had a really great webinar and conversation yesterday. David's an expert in SEO from Solutions for Growth, and we talked about a lot of beginner level SEO things and got an understanding of what SEO is all about and how it works. So we talked a little bit about how search engines work, how to actually influence those results with things like your website, the content and the keywords on those websites, and also how to focus on the right keywords to get the most impact. So we had a ton of engagement and a ton of questions come in during that webinar. We didn't get through all of them during the live webinar itself, so we wanted to make sure we come back here and answer some more of those questions. So David has graciously given his time again. So David, I want to welcome you and thank you for giving us the time to answer more of these wonderful questions that our audience had yesterday.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was great to be part of your team yesterday and share all this important information about SEO. And we had so many questions, so glad we're having the second video to answer these questions and provide more information to folks.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in and get through as many of these questions as we can. So Gloria had a question. We do a constant contact newsletter and have a link to it in the navigation bar. Would a blog be redundant?
Well, kudos for having a constant contact newsletter, a smart thing to do. And it's nice to have a link to it on the navigation bar. And no, having a blog is not redundant because the content that appears on the Constant Contact email is actually hosted at Constant Contact. So it's not providing any value to you from an SEO perspective. So I would strongly recommend having a blog on your website so the content resides on your domain in your hosting account.
That is a wonderful question and a great answer there, because I know I've seen that question come up even in the past when we've talked a little bit about SEO. So this next one comes from Roy. Can I use SEO to improve traffic to my Shopify page?
The short answer is yes. Shopify has various tools that will help with SEO, and by all means, you should use those tools and follow also what we spoke about yesterday to drive more traffic to your Shopify page based on your organic ranking.
Very good. And a follow-up question to that is, I'm not exactly sure how Shopify works with their web pages and everything, but would they have to be using the Shopify website and then have their own domain associated with that in order for the SEO to work?
Yes, you should have your own domain if you're using a Shopify website, by all means, yes.
Perfect. All right, so I know Susan was one of the people who asked this question, and I believe I saw a few others come in from this. Lots of questions about those all-important tags that we talked about yesterday. But the first question on tags is, how do I add the tags to my website?
So tags are the H1, H2, and H3 tags that help Google understand what the content of the web page is. And tags are added on two sections of a web page. It's called the head and the body. So you can manually enter those or have a web developer enter those for you. If you have a WordPress website or some other platforms as well, there are plugins that help you add those tags to the website. You basically install the plugin. It will pop up with a couple of windows where you add the tags to the various sections of the site, and you click submit, and you're done.
Very good. So this next one regarding the tags, H1, is it better to have only one H1 tag per page, or is it okay to have more than one H1 on a page?
You can have more than one H1 on a page. And the example I showed yesterday had two of them. You can have multiple H2s and H3s, not a problem.
Is there ever a limit on how many headings or tags you would want to add in there?
I don't think there's a physical limit, but you also don't want to overdo it. Otherwise, it starts being confusing to Google.
Okay, good point. All right. So let's go down to this question from Margot. Does capitalization matter on tags in SEO?
No. That was easy.
That was a very easy one. Yeah, so Michelle asks, is there a method for retaining ranking when a company upgrades to a new website or rebrands?
Smart question. So there, when you mean upgrade, I'm assuming redoing the website. So as long as you maintain the domain, that's crucial. You need to maintain the domain and the current URL structure, so the various subpages from the homepage. So keep those intact because that's how Google knows how your website is structured. If you're currently ranking well, I would also encourage you to keep the current content on the website, because if you start taking content away, that's going to hurt. If you start changing the content and maintaining the same quantity of it, it may hurt. So when you're rebranding or redoing the website, it's a great opportunity to, first of all, install a blog and also consider adding more content to the existing web pages that is keyword rich for your purposes.
Very good points there to make in terms of rebranding and restructuring. Very good. So Tracy says, I sell thousands of products on my website. How do I strategically use keywords for that many products and their spelling variations?
So if you're selling thousands of products, each product should have a title, H1 or H2, depending if it's categorized, and then H3 for the name of the actual product, and make sure there's an alt tag behind each picture of the product. Alt tag is the description that helps Google understand what the picture is about. And if there are spelling variations, that gets kind of tricky. I would lean towards not, each case is different, but I would lean towards not using spelling variations, because in most cases, Google is smart enough to understand what typical mistakes are made, and it will have an understanding of what the searcher is looking for. I think if you start getting into spelling variations on a website with thousands of products, it could be a never-ending job. So there are probably other things you can be focusing on for SEO purposes beyond just spelling variations.
Great. Would you say, so thinking about optimizing for SEO with that many products, would you maybe start by picking out your most popular products to think about the keyword structure and everything on them?
Yes, definitely. That's a smart approach. I mean, it's unrealistic to rank for thousands of products because it's just unrealistic. So if you want to focus on the top, if you have thousands, let's say start with 20 and rank well for those 20 products that are your biggest sellers, the biggest profit makers, the ones where you have the biggest market share. Focus on those. In marketing, whether it's SEO or email marketing or direct mail, the more targeted you are, the more specific you are, the better results you're going to get.
Very good. Awesome. So Christine says, the businesses that come up directly beneath the map on Google's first page, are these specifically ranked by geographic proximity?
Yes, absolutely. So Google knows where you are, where you're doing the search, and it will match up the keywords for the businesses that you're looking for and also your proximity to them.
And a follow-up question to that, is that all set up through the Google Business Profile that we were also talking about yesterday?
You're right, Stephanie. So the way Google knows where you are is based on the Google profile, as well as other citations or other directories that exist out there. So they will look at, it could be Yelp reviews, it could be a listing on the Yellow Pages, industry directories, and they kind of match up all that information, but the primary one is Google's own listing. And talking about citations, make sure that all of your listings on every citation or directory is 100% consistent with all your Google profile information. So if you are at 123 Main Street, make sure that they're all 123 Main Street and not 123 Main ST or things like that. Make sure your phone numbers are all the same. The moment there's a discrepancy in any little bit of that information, it gunks things up and it affects your ranking.
Great. Yeah, I know Google is very particular about the tiniest of details. So yes, that's a wonderful point there. So Lisa asks, or has a question about keywords. Is the 2 to 3 keywords used per page in a blog the same amount of keywords you should use per page on your website to gain hits to your website?
Yes, yes. You don't want to overuse keywords. Typically, when we write content for a client, we'll put between 2 and 4 keywords. So that, yeah, the short answer is yes, 2, 3, 4. If you're writing a 3,000 page article, you can use a few more, but don't overdo it. Again, the copy that you're using needs to have natural language, and don't force those keywords.
Yeah, so I would read through it and make sure it sounds like an actual human wrote it, and because otherwise if you've got too many keywords in there, it's just going to sound too forced and unnatural and turn people off.
Right.
So I saw this question a few times from people, and they want to know, like, how does Google know you have a blog? Is it just the word blog? I also saw some questions in there, like, can they label it news or FAQs or something like that? Does that matter?
It does not matter. Having the word blog certainly helps Google understand what it is, but Google recognizes the type of information that's on the page. So you can call it updates, news, the latest, notes. It doesn't matter. You don't have to use the word blog.
Awesome, very good. So Carmen asks, do you need to display your address on Google Business Profile? As a home-based business, I would not want my address to display.
So you do have to enter your address because Google, let me take a step back. Google will only list businesses that have a physical presence. So for example, an online business will not have a Google My Business listing. If you are a home-based business and you don't want to have people come to your home office, for example, what you would do is you would enter your home address, and then you set up the service area, which is the area that you service, and then you would hide your business address. So that's how it's done.
Okay, very good to know that. I know we've got a lot of people, especially working from home these days.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this next one comes from Sherry. It says, Google will not allow us to claim a business account because we don't have a brick and mortar office. We currently only have a virtual office. What ways can we overcome this?
A similar answer to what I shared earlier, that is, if you have a home office, you are able to hide it, but it needs to be a business that has a service area. So for example, if you are a plumber and you have a home office, you put it in, then you hide it, and you say that in this city, this is where, that's my service area. If you are literally a virtual business with no physical presence, that likely is not going to fly. Also, in the past, Google allowed PO boxes or addresses of places like the UPS store where you could have a mailbox. Those are no longer available anymore. So Google is not allowing true virtual businesses a listing on Google.
Gotcha. That is good to know. All right. So Natalie asks, I often get calls from someone from Google saying that my business profile needs updating. Is that a scam?
Yes. Yes. Google will not reach out to you by phone saying that your Google profile needs to be updated. Be very wary of that.
Good to know. Heidi says, we get reviews, but they keep disappearing. Do you know why?
Yes. So Google's review system uses an algorithm to determine whether reviews are real or not. And part of the elements that go into that particular algorithm are tied to the frequency at which the frequency at which reviews are being submitted based on their prior history, the information that's in the reviews, if they're very generic, if they're reviews written by people who've written only one review and all of a sudden are writing reviews like that. So it's not a perfect science, but Google wants to ensure that the reviews that appear on their system are real reviews by real people who really are reviewing the business because they have an experience with it. So That's the reality. It's an algorithm that decides what appears. So in other words, if you ask your friends and family to all of a sudden write reviews for your business, or within 1 week, chances are most of those reviews will not appear. By
Gotcha.
the way,
And
Yelp does the same thing.
gotcha. Good to know. I know a frequent question when we're talking about reviews, to follow up with that, is people want to know if there's a way to get those reviews to come back. Is there a way to do that? I would assume no, based on what you just said.
No.
Okay. Very good. So Kevin says, trying to verify our Google page, yet we are not getting the postcard. Is there another option versus the postcard?
There is, and I believe if after 2 or 3 requests of requesting the postcard, you don't get it, there might be something odd going on with the address itself. But I believe there is an options where you say, I am not getting the postcard, and then there's I believe, a phone verification. But remember that these Google processes change all the time. So something that might have been in place last week may have changed. And we've had this a couple of times only, because usually the postcard does work.
Awesome. Good to know. So just sounds like just keep trying, and then I'm assuming that other option will pop up for whatever optional or alternative verification process they have. Great. So Lisa says, how can I update my Google profile? It won't let me log in and gain access.
Well, Google has pretty stringent security. So if you can't get in, you got to reset your password, or there are different ways to reset passwords or gain access. You just need to follow the instructions on how to gain access to the account. On this note, anybody who has a Google or Gmail account should really make sure that they update the account to provide alternative ways to access. That means using a second email address in the account, using a mobile device so they can send a 2-factor authentication code. Don't just rely on one email and with a hope that you remember the password.
That's a great tip, because sometimes we forget those passwords, or something else happens with that email address and it gets closed down, or we're locked out for a while. So that makes a lot of sense. Catherine asks, how do you make sure you are appearing on Google Maps?
2 ways. One is make sure you have a completed Google profile with all the information 100% correct, and then work on your SEO. Those 2 things together gets you on Google Maps.
Very good. Kathy says, I heard that an ad or SEM at the top of search results are mostly spam ads, which carry malware if the user clicks on it. Is there any truth to that?
No. The ads that appear at the top of Google are real ads that are presented by Google. And if there's any doubt that they are spam, they would not appear there. Google is very, very cautious about what ads are run through their system, and the concept of having a spam ad is not applicable.
Basically, I think they just have like a whole review process that takes 24 hours or something like that, if I remember right, before it'll go live. Is that correct?
I don't believe there's a review process anymore. I mean, they do review it, but it's immediate because it's done by systems.
Okay.
And they also verify your account, they verify your credit card, they verify the pages on the website where the ads are going through. So they're pretty buttoned up. So we run a huge amount of Google ads on an ongoing basis, and that has never been an issue, nor very honestly have I seen anything about Google running ads for spam or businesses that are not reliable.
Very good. I was interested in that question too, because I had never seen anything that seemed like it was malware or anything in the ad section. So this next one comes from Amber. Any info on Google ad grants for nonprofits? Is it worth the trouble of setting them up?
Oh, yes, because Google has a whole world of services available to nonprofits. Just for example, they have a Google Ads program or Google Ads grants for nonprofits that gives you a substantial amount of money to nonprofits to run Google Ads. So is it worth the trouble? Yeah, it's free money, and it can only help. Try it. If it doesn't work, walk away, but otherwise you may be leaving money on the table.
Great. And I think there's actually, if I remember right, a blog post on the Constant Contact website on Google Ad Grants for nonprofits. So after we're done recording this, David, I will see if I can track that down so that I can provide some more information on the page for you. So look for some more information underneath this video.
Yeah.
So Ariane asks, should a company who only has a storefront, no e-commerce, pay for Google Ads?
Oh, of course, certainly. Google Ads is not only for e-commerce, it's for any product or service. We run Google Ads for personal injury law firms. It doesn't matter what you're selling. If you're selling something that someone is looking for, you want to run an ad for that, no question.
Awesome. So Buddy says, are the rankings based on the master domain or is it by a subdomain? For example, they have www.knightsquest.org and the blog is on blog.knightsquest.org.
Very smart question. Every page has its own ranking. It's not just the website. So your homepage might not rank very well, but you might have an internal page about a particular subject, and that ranks better than the homepage. So each page is individual.
So would you want the blog to be at instead of blog.knightsquest.org, to have it be on the main site so it doesn't have that difference in the URL at the top?
Yes and no. In a certain sense, it doesn't matter because, again, Google will understand that the blog.knightquest.org is connected to the original domain. But in a best practices aspect, it would be better if the domain was the first word of the domain came before the word blog.
Okay.
Now, if that current blog.knightquest.org is ranking very well now, don't change it, because the moment you change the domain, you're going to start from zero again. So take into consideration whether you should change it now if you're not ranking well, so that it might help the ranking.
Very good information there. Shaquille asks, what are the best plugins for SEO?
There's a handful of them. I can tell you from experience, we work with Yoast, Y-O-A-S-T. It's a very well-established plugin, easy to install, relatively easy to use, and it has a very smart tool that works with the green, orange, red to let you know the various elements of the page, whether they're well set up or not.
Very good. And this next one is a specific question for you and the work that you do. Lisa asks, what kind of industries do you work with?
We do a lot of work with professional services firms, such as coaches, attorneys, doctors, consultants, engineers, architects, and so on. But we are industry agnostic. So we do everything from industrial heaters to pediatric dentists to retailers, e-commerce. It runs the gamut. And the benefit of that is that we're always learning from one industry how things are performing or not performing, and are able to apply that to other industries. So something that we're doing, for example, with a pediatric dentist that's working very well, because it's a professional services firm, we can apply that to an engineer's website, for example, or an architect or consultant. So this ability to apply these learnings from one industry to the other has really provided great benefits to our clients.
Very good. I love that. And I can tell you have a lot of expertise in not just SEO, but, websites and newsletters and things like that too. So Kristen asks, do you recommend Google Analytics over other softwares or websites?
I'll say that Google Analytics is your preeminent dashboard to your website. If you're doing anything with Google, you do want Google Analytics because it also connects with other tools that Google offers, such as Google Ads, for example. So if you connect Google Ads to Google Analytics, you have a lot more data that's crossing over, and it gives you a better insight in terms of how your website is performing. That said, if you are in a particular industry or there's a particular need that you have to see certain information about your website, there might be other tools that you may want to install over it. I have to say that the vast majority of small businesses get really all the information they need from Google Analytics. It's free. All the other ones tend to have a charge. And it's very rare to have something that Google Analytics does not know.
Very good. Steve asks, how does a company do SEO when it's a paid membership business? Mm-hmm. Businesses pay $3,000 a year to get access to our website.
Well, it depends. So the short answer is yes, you can do SEO for any business. So if you're in a membership business for engineers, aeronautical engineers, for example, you want to run an SEO program that includes information and backlinks from anything that has to do with aeronautical engineering. So that if I'm an aeronautical engineer and I have a question, or I'm looking for support, I'm looking for an association, your website should have all sorts of information about those keywords and about those subjects. So that when I'm sitting at my desk and I type in, American Association of Aeronautical Engineers, this is just a silly example, you want to come up, either because of your name, but certainly also because of the content that your website provides.
Very good. So Veronica asks, if you are using Google Sites, is that a good advantage for domain authority?
No. The domain authority has virtually nothing to do with a hosting account unless it's hosted in another country, because you could have a Google domain, a Google site with a one-page website that has a domain authority of 3, and you can have another website that is much more substantial, not from Google, and you can have a much higher domain. So the short answer is no.
Okay, perfect. Deb asks, should you use symbols and keywords such as the £sign or the @sign? And I'm assuming that's with keywords or maybe even those tags we talked about earlier.
No, this has nothing to do with a hashtag or like you would have on Instagram. No.
Okay. So yesterday when we ended, I asked you some final thoughts, and you mentioned, we're doing all this work to drive traffic to our website through SEO. We're getting them to our website, and so you suggested we have a way on that website to capture their email address, get them in our system, so that we can start to communicate with them later on via email.
Right.
So I know you're pretty familiar with what you can do in Constant Contact and how that would all work. So Bob wants to know, how do you do this in Constant Contact, and do you use drip marketing? And he says, I want to put together an informative file for the potential customer. What kind of advice do you have?
So I'm assuming that the potential customer is someone coming to Bob's website to learn information about their company. So Bob, great initiative. So the way it would work is that in the Constant Contact system, there is a section called sign up forms, and there are multiple types of sign up forms, and you would create one that is either inline or a pop-up on one of the pages of your website, usually the home page, and you set it up. You can certainly brand it with the colors and the logo of the website, and the offer is there for something like, let's say you sell widgets, and the offer is for a white paper, or that says, 10 things you need to know before you buy a widget, or you might want a discount, you enter your email address for free shipping on our widgets, and the person enters their email address in that form, and that's immediately added to a specific list in your Constant Contact account that is connected to an autoresponder. An autoresponder is a series of emails that are pre-written and pre-set that is triggered when an email address is added to the list connected to that autoresponder. So that happens, the first email goes out, it says, Dear Bob, here is the coupon for 20% off the widgets. And then the autoresponder is set up, for example, every 5 days to send the next email out. These are all pre-written and pre-scheduled. So 5 days from now, the person receives a second email with information about widgets or your company or another promotion, something like that. We've developed a large number of these campaigns. I can tell you they work very well because it's a smart way for a company to nurture someone who comes to their website. You see, a website is like a store. You want to keep them in the store as long as possible, get a little piece of information from them so that you can continue communicating with them. Marketing, after all, is communication, so that on a regular basis you stay in front of these people, remind them of your business, remind them how their life will be better when they buy your widgets.
Very good. That's a great explanation. So Cynthia asks, do I want to send them from my website or from my newsletter to my website? Is there any benefits to doing that?
Absolutely, yes. One of the main goals of an email newsletter is to drive people to your website. So for example, when we custom design templates for our clients, we're very careful because we put the menu bar from their client's website in the email. So it's very easy for people who are viewing the email to click on links on About Us and services and products and so on. And that is it becomes an important driver of traffic to the website. So yes, Cynthia, certainly want links in your newsletter to your website.
Couldn't agree more, and you're going to get a lot of value out of just doing that from your email subscribers, because you can start to see from your reports of who's interested in what topics or products on your website even. So a lot of great benefits to doing that. So David, I do see we are out of time for today. I want to thank you again for being here. Any final thoughts before we close out today?
These questions really give a sense of the information that people are hungry for in terms of marketing, especially digital marketing, whether it's SEO or Google Ads or websites or email marketing. And we've been a certified solution provider of Constant Contact for 12 years, and we're delighted to talk to people and provide, obviously, our services, but also education. So I encourage anybody to go to our website, which is solutionsforgrowthllc.com, and there's detailed information on the services we offer to small businesses, and we'll be happy to explore how we may be able to help you to grow your business. And I want to thank you, Stephanie, and Constant Contact very much for this opportunity to share this information with your customers and market.
Awesome. I was so happy to have you. And David will also share a link on the page under this video. So if you're looking for how to get in touch with David and to work with him and his team, we're going to post that there and you can find out more information. So, all right. Well, thank you again, David. And we're going to go ahead and close out. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.